The council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Crix finished reading the official declaration. His blue scales reflected the harsh lights above as he looked down at the human delegation with barely hidden disgust. The year was 2847, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Federation for exactly 43 years. By unanimous vote of the Council of 12, humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Federation, Crix announced. His voice carried no emotion, but his eyes showed satisfaction. You have 30 standard days to remove all human presence from Federation space. Your trade agreements are void. Your protection treaties are cancelled. You are no longer welcome among civilized species. Admiral Sarah Chun stood at the front of the human delegation. She was 62 years old, with gray hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen too many battles. She did not flinch at the words. She had expected them for months now. "May I ask the official reason for this decision?" she asked calmly. Crix made a sound that might have been laughter among his species. "You know the reasons, Admiral. Humanity is aggressive, violent, unpredictable. Your species solves problems with war when other solutions exist. You breed too fast. You expand too quickly. You make the other species nervous. We have followed every Federation law," Chun replied. "The law is not the issue," said Counselor Vreen, a tall being made of living crystal. Her voice chimed like bells. "The issue is what you are. The Federation was peaceful for 10,000 years before humans arrived. Now there is tension everywhere. It is better for everyone if you leave." Chun looked around the chamber at the representatives of 12 different species. Some avoided her eyes. Others stared with open hostility. A few looked uncomfortable, but none spoke in humanity's defense. "Very well," Chun said. She gave a small bow that held no respect. "We will leave your Federation. But remember this moment, counselors. Remember that you chose this." The human delegation walked out of the chamber with their heads held high. Behind them, several counselors exchanged satisfied looks. The human problem was finally solved. 3 months later, humanity had completely withdrawn from Federation space. They pulled back to their original territory, a small cluster of 47 star systems near the edge of the galaxy. The Federation erected monitoring stations along the border to ensure humans stayed where they belonged. For a while, everything seemed fine. The Federation continued its peaceful existence. Trade flowed between member species. Diplomatic meetings were calm and boring, just as the counselors preferred. But things began to change in the 5th year after humanity's expulsion. It started small. A few pirate attacks on trading ships in the outer regions. The Federation security forces dealt with them easily enough, but the attacks grew more frequent. The pirates grew bolder. They started hitting larger targets, better defended convoys. The Krillian species, insectoid beings who controlled most of the Federation's shipping lanes, sent an official complaint to the Council. "These attacks are costing us billions in lost cargo," their representative buzzed. "We demand more protection." The Council increased security patrols. It helped for a few months. Then the Void Hunters appeared. No one knew where the Void Hunters came from. They were not a species anyone had encountered before. Their ships were black as space itself, massive vessels that seemed to drink in light. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked, destroyed, and moved on. The first major attack hit the Vreen homeworld's outer colonies. 3 billion crystal beings died in a single night. The Void Hunters melted their cities with weapons that the Federation had never seen before. Councilor Vreen herself addressed the emergency session, her crystal form flickering with grief and rage. "We must respond," she chimed. "We must show these monsters that the Federation will not be intimidated." The Federation assembled its largest fleet in 3,000 years. 400 warships from 8 different species gathered at the nexus point to intercept the Void Hunter advance. It was the most powerful military force the Federation had ever created. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Federation fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single ship survived. The Void Hunters continued their advance without slowing down. Panic spread across Federation space. Species that had not known war for centuries suddenly faced extinction. Their weapons were too weak. Their tactics were too old. They had spent 10,000 years perfecting peace, and now they had forgotten how to fight. Ambassador Crix sat in his private chamber, staring at the latest casualty reports. His scales had turned pale with stress. The Void Hunters had destroyed 14 colonies in the past month. They were heading toward the core worlds now. At their current speed, they would reach the Federation capital in less than a year. His aide entered with a datapad. "Sir, we have received responses from all potential allies. The Merchant Consortium refuses to get involved. The Free Colonies say they lack the military strength to help. The Outer Rim Coalition has not responded at all." "And the humans?" Crix asked quietly. The aide hesitated. "We have not contacted the humans, sir. They were expelled from the Federation. We can't simply ask them to return." Crix closed his eyes. Pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. "Contact them. Send a message to Admiral Chun directly. Tell her we wish to discuss a possible alliance." The response came 3 days later. It was short and cold. "The humans have received your message. We decline to discuss any alliance at this time. We wish the Federation well in its current difficulties." More attacks followed. More worlds burned. The Void Hunters seemed to have endless ships, endless weapons, endless hunger for destruction. The Federation tried everything. They tried diplomacy, but the Void Hunters did not respond. They tried surrender, but the Void Hunters destroyed the surrender vessels. They tried hiding, but the Void Hunters found them anyway. Finally, the Council of 12 voted unanimously to send a formal delegation to human space. Ambassador Crix himself would lead it. He would do what he never imagined possible. He would beg. The human border station let them through after a 12-hour wait. The Federation ships were escorted by human vessels that moved with predatory grace through the stars. Crix noticed how different these ships were from the ones he remembered. Larger, more heavily armed, more dangerous. They were taken to Earth, the human homeworld. Crix had never visited before. He was surprised by its beauty, by the blue oceans and green forests and white clouds. It did not look like the home of a violent species. Admiral Chun met them at the landing platform. She had aged in the 11 years since their last meeting. Her hair was completely white now, and lines marked her face. But her eyes were the same, sharp and knowing. "Ambassador Crix," she said without warmth. "Welcome to Earth. I must say, this visit is unexpected." "Admiral Chun." Crix forced himself to bow. "I come representing the Galactic Federation. We seek your help against the Void Hunters." Chine nodded slowly. "Walk with me. We have much to discuss." She led him through the capital city, a place of tall buildings and busy streets filled with humans of all ages. Children ran past them, laughing. Old people sat on benches, feeding birds. It looked peaceful, normal. "You expelled us because you said we were violent," Chun said as they walked. "Aggressive, dangerous. Do you remember?" "I remember. Those were accurate descriptions, Ambassador. Humans are all those things. We have spent our entire history fighting each other, fighting nature, fighting anything that threatened us." She stopped and turned to face him. "That is why we are still here. That is why we survive when others do not. The Void Hunters have destroyed everything we have thrown at them," Crix said, his voice desperate. "Our weapons do nothing. Our ships are paper to them. We need help. We need you." Chum studied him for a long moment. 11 years ago, you told us we were not welcome among civilized species. You called us a problem to be solved. You treated us like animals that needed to be caged. That was a mistake," Crix admitted. "A terrible mistake." "Yes, it was." Chum began walking again. "But humans do not hold grudges forever, Ambassador. We understand survival. We understand that sometimes you need the wolves you locked out to come protect your flock. She led him to a military facility on the outskirts of the city. Inside, he saw things that made his blood run cold. Weapons that made the Void Hunter technology look simple. Ships that could move faster than anything the Federation had ever built. Soldiers trained in ways of killing that the peaceful species could not imagine. While you cast this out, we prepared, Chun explained. We knew this day would come. Not the Void Hunters specifically, but something like them. The universe is dangerous, Ambassador. The Federation forgot that. We never did. Will you help us? Crix asked. Chun was silent for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. We will help you, but there will be conditions. Anything. First, humanity will be restored to the Federation with full membership and voting rights. Second, humans will lead the military response to the Void Hunter threat. Third, the Federation will never again attempt to expel or restrict any species based on their nature alone. Crix agreed to everything. He had no choice. Within 3 months, human fleets were deploying across Federation space. The first major engagement against the Void Hunters happened near the Vreen homeworld. The humans did not use the same tactics the Federation had tried. They did not form neat lines of battle. They did not follow predictable patterns. They fought dirty. They fought mean. They used tricks and traps and weapons that bent the rules of warfare. They sacrificed ships to create openings. They pressed attacks that any sensible species would have abandoned. They refused to retreat even when the odds were against them. The Void Hunters were not prepared for this. They had conquered dozens of species across the galaxy, all of them peaceful and predictable. They had never faced anything like humanity. The first Void Hunter ship was destroyed after 4 hours of brutal fighting. Then another. Then another. The tide of the war began to turn. It took 3 years to push the Void Hunters back. It took another 2 years to follow them to their home territory and end the threat permanently. The cost was high. Millions of humans died. Billions of Federation citizens died. Whole worlds were left scarred and broken. But the Federation survived. Because of the species they had cast out. Because of the violent, aggressive, dangerous humans. Ambassador Crix attended the victory celebration on Earth. He stood beside Admiral Chun as crowds cheered and music played. She was old now, leaning on a cane, but she was smiling. Thank you, Crix said simply, for saving us. For saving everyone. Chun looked at him with those knowing eyes. We did not do it for thanks, Ambassador. We did it because it was right. Because even when others reject us, we still care. That is what makes us human. She turned back to watch the celebration, leaving Crix to think about the species he had once called a problem. They were aggressive, yes, violent and unpredictable. But they were also brave, loyal, and willing to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. Perhaps that was worth more than 10,000 years of peace. The Federation learned something important from the war. Peace was precious, but it could not be maintained by peaceful species alone. Sometimes you needed guardians. Sometimes you needed warriors. Sometimes you needed humans. And the humans, for their part, forgave. They rebuilt alongside the species that had rejected them. They shared their technology and their knowledge. They became not just members of the Federation, but its protectors. The Council of 12 was reformed into the Council of 13. The 13th seat belonged to humanity, and it would never be taken away again. The universe remained dangerous, but with humans standing guard, the Federation no longer feared what lurked in the dark spaces between stars. They had cast out their greatest defenders and learned the cost of that choice. It was a lesson no one would ever forget.